Welcome to Carter's Country Club. This is episode 1, A Call to Right Action, part 7. My name is Ann Taylor Lashbrook-Wright. Thanks for being here. Hey, I'm pretty excited for part 7. It's definitely a little less dark than part 6. And some of what I'm going to show is, again, back to how we made different choices and we were doing different things, with our son as well as we made different choices in 2020 and 2021 than many other people. Maybe you did too, right? So maybe, sorry, my nose is itching. Maybe that's why you're here, and that's why you have listened to me ramble on for for a long time. So I'm going to keep moving. Yeah. So moving on. I'll see you on the other side. All right. Yep, he led us in the right direction. And we've got to save the divine masculine, right? I think some of the things that I've been talking about throughout this episode and throughout all of these parts is that, it's totally my opinion, and maybe it's your opinion too, that there is definitely an assault on the masculine. And I mentioned earlier that I had taken part in these leadership trainings, and I was thinking about this last night. I was wondering if one of those courses that I took with mastery and transformational training is a course called the relationships course. And it's not necessarily the way that you might think about it. It was really about the masculine and feminine and, stepping into relationship with other people as well as ourselves and finding, that space, kind of a balanced space within us. And I was wondering whether those trainings would be the same today as they were. I took that course twice because I found it so valuable and because I was so distorted in my, view of being a woman in my early 20s that yeah, I took it twice, and I think I even went back and staffed it too. I can't remember. It's been a long time. But yeah, that I don't know if it would be taught the same today. It was really healing, lots of shadow work. And I was really fortunate to take that course in a variety of different ways. One kind of in a relationship, and then another one, with kind of more focused on other women. But yeah, I don't know if that would be taught the same today. And if you're somebody who's gone through LifeSpring or you've taken those courses in MITT, or if you happen to, still be doing that type of work, please comment here. Please reach out to me and let me know if Sylvia Badashi still teaches that course the same. I would be curious. But here you're going to see Carter repelling in the next little video here. And yeah, this series is a little bit about expecting to self-rescue, right? Nobody's coming. This is, kind of a popular sticker from a brand called 30 Seconds Out, which is not something I'm necessarily endorsing here. Oh, you can hear them a little bit, which is cool.
Can you touch him?
Ah, yay!
You touch him?
So yeah, Carter climbed up there. He's wearing Keens. He had like one terrible pair of Keens because we really struggled with his wide feet to find some shoes, especially in that time period. But yeah, Justin eventually, you saw in the other image, Justin goes up there and has to rescue him because he's strong enough to get up there, but he doesn't weigh enough to lower himself down. So yeah, and here is Carter when he was right at two. Right at two.
You're good. Look for feet, man.
All right, Carter Great, look for your feet.
The literalness, right? Literalness of a 2-year-old. He looks
All right,
at his
do you
feet.
want
Can you
to?
put a foot right here? Right here? 1 foot.
There you go.
Can you get it up
Right.
there? There you
You
go.
may need a cheater block.
Just a little bit. How about right? Can you put your hands right here? Your hands? There you go. Now put a foot up there.
There you go.
There you go.
Yes.
There you
There you
go.
go.
That's
Yeah,
it.
figure it out. You're good.
Oh, you need some back?
He's like,
You're not going anywhere.
I fall.
You both.
Miss, you got it.
Alrighty. Are you gonna go up?
Try again.
Oh, you can see him thinking there. When Carter thinks, he and I have, it's called a convergence issue. So we have where our eyes kind of, drift off to the side. So you could see it a little bit there. But yeah, that was like the first day that he wore his little harness. But you can see this picture on the left here. Was the day that he decided he was going to climb. He's probably, I don't know, a little more than 18 months there, maybe about 20, 21 months. He was before 2 years old. And so he asked if he could go up while we were climbing. And then once he got up there, he wanted a chalk bag, and then he wanted to have a rope on, which he didn't need it. So we just kind of tied a little runner around his waist. And then he wanted some gear, right? So he was like, rope. And then he pointed to his waist and he wanted a quick draw because he saw everybody, lead climbing and placing draws. And so then he was mimicking the climbing, right? And so I think the main thing that I really want to talk about here, not only because I want to share that, again, my son just has a different life, right, than many other kids. But what I wanted to share here is that children are programmable, right? He came into the world with, like bits of his personality and different things, but, he mimics the environment that we were put in. And then this image to the far right um, is Carter, and gosh, he's probably maybe about 5 there, and that's my friend Brian belaying him. And we're back in the gorge again, but now Carter's wearing actual shoes, and he climbed a bunch of routes that weekend. Climbing is for me about being free. It's just to move and be uninhibited and free and tap into the connection with nature. And that's Dean Potter. I was pretty fascinated by Dean Potter, and maybe you're not familiar with him, but I liked this quote because definitely I connect with that. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about this line that I have sometimes seen people cross because you can see this look in Dean Potter's eyes as he got older, before he died, that you could see where I don't know if I can quite describe it. Like he crossed the line of, from maybe selfless to a little bit selfish, right? And if you don't know who he was a rock climber, a free climber, a highliner, a base jumper, all the things. And towards the end of his life, he was even like base jumping with his really cool blue heeler dog Whisper. But I've seen many people in the climbing world cross that line, and there's actually a handful of people I've known that have died. And I think it's really interesting that maybe if you're not familiar with rock climbing, perhaps the only climbing film or climber you've ever seen is Alex Honnold, and he's really been glorified in free soloing, right? Not just free climbing, but free soloing. And that's not really the case with most climbing. And so I wanted to share these images here to let you kind of see like a little bit of what our life was at that time, but also, that we were right there, right? Sometimes people saw images of Carter like hanging in his harness and, my dad like flipped out and things like that, thinking like, oh my goodness, he's totally in danger. But as you can see in this picture here, like he's not even off the ground and we're right there with him. So I may have made some choices. And I had a really cool Buddhist teacher when I was in my 20s, tell me that I didn't need to free solo, that that was absolutely absurd and ridiculous and kind of disrespectful to life and my life. And I kind of took that to heart. And I didn't really solo very much, but a little bit. And it's pretty fun to kind of push those limits. And I think it's really interesting. I want to keep moving along here. Like I said, this was back in 2019, again, before the world got crazy, when we were, in the gorge with the van, all of the kind of things. But it was really interesting to feel like, being a climber and then, always being around like skateboarding and skiing and snowboarding and, highlining and all these different things that I'd been around all through, my late teens through my 20s and obviously into my 30s and even now, I thought that we were all on the same page. I thought that we all were kind of against authority, right? But, I would learn pretty quickly that we were not on the same page. So, yeah, here's that video here where Justin goes up to rescue Carter Gray. He's not really in danger, he just can't wait the rope. And yeah, it's funny because I feel like people that, know us now, where I coach swimming and I teach gymnastics, sometimes don't know that this was kind of, you know, our life before the world got crazy. And there's Carter Gray on his balance bike. That's the pink balance bike I referenced earlier. That actually was something
Be
we found
careful.
at a thrift store. But
I think you should walk it.
this is a good example. Oh, he's making his motor sound.
You
He
gonna walk
always
it?
did.
Let's walk it. Thank you.
Yeah, and see, he was pretty cautious too, but every once in a while he'd push his little limits. But again, they're programmable. And I mentioned earlier that I might fall in the unschool camp in some regard, but I do think it's our job to be there, right? And to set those boundaries and be that example that, it may look from the outside, like he was living kind of a crazy life. Here's this, in these images, he's 3 and, like, or I don't even know if he was 3. He's probably not even 3 on the one on the right. I think he's 3 on the one on the left. I don't know, can't remember. It all comes together. But anyway, he's a little dude, and he was definitely could have some natural consequences, but that's our job, to step in. Oh, sorry, the keynote's gonna highlight those a little bit. And here's another song for you. He never could have done that if he had a mask on.
What?
One time we went in that water and you tried to get me to go down that waterfall.
That's true.
But why is it dirty now?
Well, there's not very much water.
No, haven't had a lot of rain. It was really dry the other day.
Mom, Dad,
He's jamming out. So, yeah, I think I put this video in here I mean, because I love the harmonica and I love him just like wandering around and doing his thing and thinking about everything. But Carter became really cautious and he was talking about, he was floating between Justin and I when he was pretty small and he had a life jacket on, which, looking back, that was probably kind of dumb. I know that sounds strange to be like, oh, it's dumb to have a life jacket on, but he didn't really need to. And the life jacket, you can kind of see Carter's like a sturdy body little dude, and it flipped him right on his face. And we would spend the next couple of years working to coax him to get into the water because of that experience. But yeah, so as we entered 2020, this this is what our life looked like, right? We were not hauled up alone in our house, right? So I mentioned Carter went to this forest school, which is why you see these people with masks on. And he loved that and he was very dirty. The middle picture where you see Carter in his little shorts and his ballet socks and shoes, with his buddy Amata, is before the world shut down. That was our Friday, right? They would go to their ballet tap jazz combo, and then we would go downstairs. You can see they're looking in an ice arena, and so we would ice skate afterwards. So Carter started skating when he was 3, because Justin played hockey, and I love ice skating. I'm not like them. Carter and Justin are these beautiful skaters, and I just do my best to catch up with all of the years that I did not skate. I went skating like once in kindergarten, once in like maybe 6th grade, and then didn't really skate very much until I was in my 20s. So I really learned kind of later in life, which you can do. And then the picture in the middle is not from 2020. It's from when things finally reopened and he could go back to hockey and skating. So he lost a couple years there because we did not have any ice arenas that were not open. I think we went a couple time and like had some buffs around our neck and kind of pretend to mess with those. The only thing that was good about Kentucky was they didn't really they didn't enforce masks on children, right? It was 5 and older, and Carter was, well, I guess it's not good. I mean, it was terrible, but it was great for us because Carter didn't have to stand up all the time, right? In certain instances, we had to advocate for him and advocate for himself. But we did get to go skiing when some things reopened because Aubert didn't really enforce the masks. I think we kind of, again, I think we have like buffs around our neck and went up to the counter to get our skis and kind of, but nobody was really harassing us. The benefit of Tennessee. So we really looked at, um, you know, being around as many people as would see us. I early on I was not scared of anything. I had been pretty removed from like the media and the news for a really, really long time. And so I kind of didn't know what was going on when they, kind of called off forest school. And then I had to call some friends. And then when I realized what was going on, fortunate, I was like, I'm going to go see what David Icke says about this. I'm going to see what Paul Check says about this. What's the Weston A. Price Foundation say? And then I listened to, I think really early on, the Model Health Show with Sean Stevenson was really instrumental for me and sharing that information. I mean, I was already aware of the high wire and a bunch of different things that now I feel like the high wire in 2025 is just pushing Trump, but whatever. All right, I'm going to keep moving on. But so, yeah, 2020 we decided to hang out with some friends and go to Tennessee. And the boys, got to pretend that they were shooting things in the Smoky Mountains.
Oh, don't shoot me.
I'm trying to shoot that bird.
These two. Because how could you deny? How could you deny them? How could you keep them away from a buddy like that? They've been around each other since they were babies. Absolutely not. I don't know why there's no audio on this one, but they're talking about all kinds of crazy stuff. But as you can see, there's like nobody in the lodge. It was just like us. No one's around anywhere. This is great because you can hear him making his little sounds. And there was a ski resort that, I mean, we didn't go out west to ski because everything was super crazy. But I did look up, I looked up, I think it was in Lead, South Dakota, Terry Peaks. I don't think they got pretty crazy with enforcing the mask mandates.
Almost got it.
He did not almost catch an edge. He's very confident in himself there. And like I mentioned, we found a gym that would let us go in and do stuff. And then we found another cool gym where we could train. And I had to kind of steal this little image here. And I really, really think that I'm going to be really honest here, and I think I've got some other images coming up about, what I see in the freedom movement, or what Passio calls the My Freedom movement, is I'm just going to be totally frank and honest, but a lot of unhealthy fat dudes that could not do anything to save their life, right? Like they really need to get healthy and really need to be that example. And so that's why I liked this thing. It's not a dad bod, it's a father figure. And maybe that meant like maybe that was posted somewhere thinking that it was okay to like be fat and gross. But you know, it's totally not. We've got to be the example. And I see a lot of people that are putting their children in activities while they're not really willing to do that themselves. So in 2020, we went to a gym called Everyday Athletes that totally welcomed us. And it's a very rare facility that also allows children to train, which is super, super cool. I worked with one of the head trainers there. Like he trained me and it was fantastic, but we could go there. And I also wanted to talk about these videos because people have
You're almost
concerns
there.
about children training or
You're over
children lifting
halfway.
weights. I don't. Again, as I mentioned earlier, I don't have any fear about, Russians or Russian people, and
Almost
they've
there.
had their kiddos lifting for a long time. But you can see here, right? This is 2020, and you can see like all kinds of people, training.
You're
And I
close.
think now it's okay to talk about the places that were
You
super
gotta cross the
cool
finish line.
and welcoming.
Oh, he's almost there.
Carter is working hard to drag that back.
Take
He
it all
mostly
the way.
built forts though and played in the gym. Every once in a while he'd do certain things. Also, when things kind of reopened, there's CrossFit Kids. They welcomed us and welcomed him, which was super cool. I've done the CrossFit Kids cert. It's pretty fantastic cert. I'm gonna. Oh, this is great. I gotta move my little navigator out of the way so I can read this. You cannot be an educator or a teacher without relating to children with full insight. Their urge to imitate has been transformed into receptivity based on a natural and uncontested relationship with authority, and you must take this into account in the broadest possible sense. Steiner's always got the wisdom. And, I don't know enough about Rosicrucianism, but I know that was, definitely like his his practice has come from his religion, I guess, if you will. But this is Carter's favorite toys. They're called Brooder, and his imagination is amazing. But he has always, you can see the little police vehicle, he has been fascinated by the police since he was really tiny. And so we've gotten to have lots of conversations about order followers. And in his years in forest school, he only wanted to play police. And I think it was also interesting that we were when COVID hit, we left the gorge and we hauled up at my mom's in Louisville, or what you may know as Louisville, Kentucky, and that's where the Breonna Taylor protests were going on. And so, I don't know if all that talk about police kind of instigated this. I don't know if, like I said, he didn't see a movie until he was 5, so he hadn't seen the Paw Patrol, but he had lots of like Paw Patrol, characters and coloring books and all of those kind of things. And if you don't know what the Paw Patrol is, they're a bunch of dogs that are order followers, which is kind of interesting. As I mentioned earlier, the dark occultists refer to the order followers, the police, military, as their dogs. And so, like I said, these are Carter's favorite toys, and he's always playing police. And so here I bring in the Butter Battle book again, right? So that we really notice that our job is to say no to government education and to all order followers. If you haven't read the Butter Battle book, first you want to do that. And if you haven't watched the cartoon, definitely. So, so interesting. Super eye opening and very clear about what's going on, with the Border Patrol guys there. So, as I mentioned, really he led the way, and that's letting me know my alarm's going off, that I've got to wrap this video up. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, because we're going to move um, into a little bit about water and movement and all of those things. But I want to close out this section, this I think this is part 6. Now I've kind of lost where I am, but I want to close this out with like I said, I'm a fan of the unschooling. I'm a fan of the child led and really learning from him. But that also comes back to, there was no doubt in my mind that, he's a dude, and that he was clear from the beginning. Like, yes, they're programmable, but, I wasn't going to be able to program him to be anything other than what he is. Not at all, right? So this is Carter. He wanted to be outside. He wanted to be in nature. And before we had the van, like I said, I had the Prius and just had the Element, and so there's Carter in the back. But there's that pink balance bike. And I do want to end with this note, because I have mentioned a little bit about how much time it takes to really have some skill and be an athlete. I think you'll see an image later where Carter raced BMX when he was 4 years old, and that was because of exactly what you see in this image here on the right. He pushed first that little green balance bike that I showed you before, and then this pink bike. He pushed the green bike for a long time, months and months and months before he rode it. And and he was riding on trails for a long time. Like I said, he went through 4 balance bikes. And I see nowadays people like, oh, my kid just didn't like the balance bike. And I'm like, well, how much time did they do it? I took him to skate parks all the time. Like when he was like 18 months old, I would take him to skate parks and he would walk that thing around, and I would encourage it. And he was really cautious. And so I was like, you can go down that ramp. You can do it. You can do it. And then, I had this old longboard, and I'd like drop in and kind of flail because I didn't have a trick board or anything, just to like show him that he could do it. So, you know, um, like I said, and how I started this whole section was, we made different choices. He spent this time in nature because intuitively that's like where he wanted to be, but also, we created that environment for him. So, yeah, probably did a little bit more rambling in here because I love looking at these videos and images of him, as I'm sure, if you're a parent, you feel the same way. And there's so many things that I can think, oh, I did that wrong, but this whole series is about making the right choices and you know, being in nature was the right choice. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is one of Carter's first like 2 word phrases was good sand. And maybe you're a flat earther and you'd call that silica, right? Or maybe it's just melted building dust. But in the Red River Gorge, it's sandstone and sandstone arches. And Carter loved that sand. Like he just wanted to be in it. And he definitely got some sand fleas as well. So thanks for listening. And I'll see you in the next one.